The laughter began as a soft ripple and grew into a wave that filled the great chamber. Priya Okonkwo stood at the center of the Galactic Concord Assembly, her formal uniform crisp and her spine straight, while 1,000 alien delegates found amusement in her words. She had asked for permission. That was her mistake. You wish to build warships? High Arbiter Selith's voice carried the clicking undertones of the Valari species. The insectoid leader's compound eyes reflected Priya's image 100 times over. Ambassador, your species has been part of this Concord for 3 centuries. In that time, you have proven yourselves adequate traders and acceptable laborers. But warships require patience your kind does not possess. Priya kept her expression neutral. She had trained for this moment. With respect, High Arbiter, humanity has demonstrated significant engineering capabilities. Our colony ships have expanded to 47 worlds. Our cargo vessels move 12% of all Concord trade goods. Cargo vessels. The Caliph representative, a being of pure luminescent energy, pulsed with what might have been contempt. We have observed your construction methods. Ambassador, you weld metal plates together. You bolt components into place. You build as children build with blocks. A holographic display activated above the assembly floor. It showed a Valari shipyard, where massive organic vessels grew like trees in a forest. Living ships, bonded telepathically to their crews, cultivated over centuries until they reached maturity. This is how true warships are made, Selith said. Grown, nurtured, perfected across generations. Your species lives, 80 years? 100 if you are fortunate? Our shipwrights begin their work knowing their great-grandchildren will complete it. The Caliph display replaced the Valari one. Pure energy constructs danced across the chamber, weapons that existed partially outside normal space, designed by minds that had contemplated warfare for 10,000 years. Can your welders match this? The Caliph asked. Priya wanted to argue. She wanted to tell them about the engineering teams back on Earth who worked double shifts, who passed knowledge from mentor to student, who built things that lasted because they knew their time was short. But she had been told to be diplomatic. We simply asked for the opportunity, she said. The opportunity has been considered. Selith's tone carried finality. Humanity's role in this concord is defined. You are haulers, miners, colonizers of worlds we find unsuitable. This is not meant as insult, Ambassador. Every species has its place. Yours is simply not at the tip of the spear. The assembly moved on to other business. Priya was dismissed like a child who had asked to stay up past bedtime. She walked through the station's corridors afterward, passing human workers supervised by alien overseers. They loaded cargo. They cleaned maintenance ducts. They operated mining equipment too dangerous for more valuable species. A young man fell in a step beside her. His uniform marked him as an engineer, but his tools were worn and his badge showed only the lowest clearance level. Ambassador, my name is Diego. I work in the cargo yards. Priya did not slow down. I remember you from the briefings. You had proposals for engine modifications. They rejected them, said human innovations were untested and unreliable. Diego pulled a small data chip from his pocket. But I tested them anyway. Increased efficiency by 34%. Reduced fuel consumption by half. They work, Ambassador, and no one will look at them. No one will even consider them. Diego's voice carried the frustration of every human worker on this station. We're not stupid, Ambassador. We are not children. We learn fast because we have to. We build fast because we do not have centuries to waste. Priya stopped walking. She looked at this young engineer, at the fire in his eyes, and she saw herself 3 decades ago. She saw every human who had been told they were not enough. Keep that data, she said. Keep improving. Keep learning. For what purpose? They will never let us build anything that matters. Priya resumed walking. Perhaps not, but perhaps someone is building anyway. Diego watched her go, confused by her words. Priya boarded her shuttle back to Earth. The journey would take 3 days, and she spent most of it composing her official report. Request denied, humans deemed unsuitable for warship construction, no appeal possible. But on the second day, Her secure terminal blinked with an encrypted message. The sender was marked only as Admiral WN. The contents were brief. We never stopped building. Come see what 300 years of spite created. Priya read the message 7 times. Then she deleted it, leaned back in her chair, and smiled for the first time since the assembly had laughed at her. 300 years. That was how long humanity had lived under the Concorde's judgment. 300 years of being told what they could not do. 300 years of watching other species look down upon them. If someone had spent all that time building in secret, Priya had to know what they had created. Her shuttle changed course, heading not for Earth, but for the dark side of Luna. For a facility that did not exist on any official record. For the answer to 3 centuries of mockery. Nobody knew about the asteroid field behind Luna's dark side. That was the point. Priya's shuttle descended through a gap in the rocks that should have been too narrow for safe passage. Her pilot, a woman who had not spoken a single word since departure, navigated with the confidence of someone who had made this journey 1,000 times. The rocks parted to reveal something impossible. A hollow space larger than some moons, filled with scaffolding and dry docks and the skeletal frames of ships. Hundreds of them, all human. Admiral Rin Nakamura waited on the landing platform. She was a small woman, her hair gray, her eyes sharp as broken glass. 3 stars gleamed on her collar. Welcome to the Prometheus Yards, Ambassador. Welcome to humanity's worst-kept secret. Priya stepped off the shuttle and stared. How long has this been here? Construction began 287 years ago. 3 months after the Concorde first denied us the right to build warships. Nakamura began walking, and Priya followed. Every generation added to it. Every human who was told they were not good enough contributed something. Materials, knowledge, time stolen from jobs the aliens considered appropriate for us. They passed workers in welding masks, sparks flying from their torches. They passed engineers arguing over holographic blueprints. They passed crews running drills in simulators that looked like torture devices. The Volari grow their ships, Nakamura continued. Takes them 4 centuries to complete a single destroyer. The Caliph shape energy constructs across millennia. Beautiful, elegant, completely impractical for species that do not live forever. She stopped before a completed vessel resting in its dock. It was not beautiful. It was not elegant. It was angular and brutal and covered in weapons that bristled like the spines of an angry creature. This is the Defiant class. We can build one in 8 months. 8 months, Ambassador. From raw materials to combat ready. Priya touched the hull. The metal was warm under her fingers. Were its capabilities? Everything. A new voice joined them. Rosa Adeyemi, chief engineer, approached with grease on her hands and pride in her voice. Kinetic accelerators that can punch through Volari organic hulls. Laser arrays powered by miniature fusion reactors. Point defense systems that can track 10,000 individual targets. And this, Nakamura pointed to a massive device mounted on the ship's spine. We call it the Spite. Compressed antimatter delivered through a gravitational lens. Creates microsingularities on impact. Tears holes in space itself. Why that name? Priya asked. Because Spite is what built this fleet, Rosa said. Every time they told us we were too primitive, we improved our designs. Every time they called us inferior, we trained harder. Every insult became fuel. Every mockery became motivation. Priya walked the length of the dock, counting ships. 12 in this section alone. How many do you have? 1,200 combat-ready vessels. Another 400 in various stages of completion. Nakamura stood beside her. We have been preparing for a war everyone else said would never come. What war? The one that is coming right now. An alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed across the shipyard. Workers stopped their tasks and looked up at the massive display screens that activated throughout the facility. Long-range sensors detected it 6 hours ago, Nakamura said. Coming from dark space. Thousands of signatures. Organic. Hungry. The display showed a cloud of shapes moving toward Concorde territory. They looked like nightmares given form, twisted biological vessels that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. The devouring swarm, Rosa whispered. We thought they were just legends. They were legends, Nakamura replied. Until now, they are heading for Valari space. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Priya remembered High Arbiter Selitha's compound eyes, reflecting her image with contempt. She remembered the laughter of the assembly. She remembered being told that humanity was good for hauling cargo, and nothing more. The Valari will fight them, she said. The Valari ships are designed for defense and long life. They have never faced something like this. Nakamura's voice was grim. The Caliph are energy beings. The swarm consumes energy. The Morthani are silicon-based. The swarm has been observed consuming silicon worlds. They cannot stop it. No, they cannot. Priya turned to face the Admiral. And we can. Nakamura smiled, and there was something terrible in that smile. Something that spoke of 3 centuries of patience finally reaching its end. We built these ships for exactly this moment, Ambassador. Not to prove them wrong. Not for revenge. We built them because we knew that someday, somewhere, something would threaten this galaxy. And when that day came, we wanted to be ready. They laughed at us. Yes, they did. They called us inferior. Yes, they did. And now you want to save them? Admiral Nakamura looked at her fleet, at the 1,200 vessels that represented humanity's answer to 300 years of mockery. That is what makes us human, Ambassador. We save people, even the ones who do not deserve it. The alarms continued to wail. Across the Prometheus yards, crews began boarding their ships. Engines powered up. Weapons systems came online. The galaxy had told humanity they could not build warships. Humanity had built an armada. Now it was time to show them what it could do. 30 billion Valari died in 17 hours. The news reached Earth through emergency channels that had never been used before. Chethras, the Valari homeworld, burned. Their living ships, grown across centuries, were torn apart by creatures that did not care about elegance or patience. Priya watched the footage in a United Human Coalition chamber. The devouring swarm moved like a disease, consuming everything it touched. Valari cities that had stood for 10,000 years became food for organisms that knew only hunger. The Caliph sent their fleet. Admiral Nakamura reported from the display screen. 1,200 energy constructs, the most powerful weapons in the Concord. What happened? Priya asked. The swarm adapted. Energy constructs need to maintain coherent form. The swarm learned to disrupt that coherence. The entire Caliph fleet was destroyed in 3 hours. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Human leaders, military officers, and politicians all struggled with the same terrible mathematics. If the Caliph could not stop this enemy, what could? The Mortani fortress worlds? Someone asked. Falling one by one. Their silicon bodies provide no protection. The swarm consumes silicon as easily as organic matter. Nakamura paused. The Galactic Concord has sent an emergency transmission. They are requesting, they are begging for human assistance. Silence filled the chamber. Priya remembered her humiliation before the assembly. She remembered Selitha's clicking laughter. She remembered being told that humanity existed to haul cargo and mine asteroids. A politician rose to speak. Why should we die for them? They treated us like servants for 300 years. Let them face this alone. Billions will die, another voice countered. Children, families, beings who never personally insulted humanity. And how many humans will die if we intervene? Our fleet is untested in real combat. We would be throwing our children into a fire to save people who consider them inferior. The debate grew heated. Voices overlapped. Accusations flew. Admiral Nakamura's voice cut through the noise. Permission to address the chamber. Priya granted it. Nakamura looked tired. She looked old. But when she spoke, her words carried the weight of 3 centuries. I was 8 years old when my grandmother told me why we built the Prometheus yards. She said that humans had once been prey. On Earth, before we made tools, before we made fire, we were food for larger creatures. We survived by being clever, by working together, by refusing to accept that we were meant to die in the dark. She paused, gathering her thoughts. The Concorde looked at our short lives and saw weakness. They looked at our fast building and saw impatience. They never understood what really drives humanity. We do not build fast because we are impatient. We build fast because we know our time is limited. Every generation pours everything they have into the next because they know they will not live to see the final result. Nakamura stepped closer to the display screen, her image filling the chamber. We did not build this fleet to prove them wrong. We built it because we knew this day would come. Because somewhere in the universe, there is always something that wants to devour the light. And when that something arrives, someone has to stand against it. Even for those who mocked us, the politician demanded. Especially for them. Nakamura's voice hardened. Because that is what separates humans from a swarm. The swarm consumes without mercy. We protect without conditions. The day we become selective about who deserves saving is the day we stop being human. The chamber fell quiet. Priya stood. We will vote. All in favor of deploying the human fleet to defend Concorde space. Hands rose. Slowly at first, then faster. Politicians who had argued against intervention found their hands rising despite themselves. Military officers who had calculated the odds voted yes anyway. The motion passed unanimously. 12 hours later, the Prometheus yards opened for the first time in 300 years. Ships that had hidden in darkness emerged into the light, one by one, then in groups, then in formations that blotted out the stars behind Luna. Diego stood on the bridge of the Relentless, a Defiant-class destroyer assigned to the forward assault wing. Around him, his crew prepared for a battle they might not survive. Tactical officer, Captain Reyes said, "Report fleet status. 1,200 vessels in formation, Captain. All weapons systems online. All crews at battle stations." Diego checked his displays. "We are ready." Ready for what exactly? Diego thought about his rejected engine modifications. He thought about the years spent proving himself in a galaxy that considered him inferior. He thought about every human who had ever been told they were not enough. "Ready to show them what we can do, Captain." The fleet moved out. Alien observers watched from Concorde stations, recording everything. They had never seen human warships before. They had been told such vessels were impossible. Now they saw 1,200 impossible things traveling toward a fight that might kill them all. High Arbiter Seleth sent a personal message to Ambassador Okonkwo. "We did not believe you could do this. We were wrong." Priya responded with 2 words, "Watch us." The human armada entered hyperspace, heading toward the Tessari system, where 3 billion Caliph colonists waited to be devoured. Time to first contact with the swarm, 16 hours. Time until humanity proved itself the same. The swarm filled the void between stars like a living stain spreading across reality. Diego watched them through the relentless tactical display and felt his stomach twist. There were thousands of them, tens of thousands, organic shapes that pulsed and writhed, vessels grown from nightmare biology, moving with the coordinated hunger of a single terrible mind. First wave engaging in 3 minutes, Captain Reyes announced. "All hands, battle stations." Across the fleet, 1,200 human ships accelerated toward the enemy. Alien observers on nearby stations recorded everything, expecting to witness humanity's destruction. The swarm had learned from fighting the Caliph. It had adapted to defeat the Morthani. It had never encountered humans. "Forward batteries, target the lead organisms," Reyes ordered. "Fire on my mark." Diego tracked the closest swarm vessels. They were beautiful in a horrifying way, their organic hulls shifting and changing even as they moved. Tentacles kilometers long stretched between them, sharing information, coordinating attacks. "Mark." Every human ship fired at once. Kinetic rounds crossed the distance in heartbeats. Laser arrays cut burning lines through the darkness. Missiles spiraled toward targets that tried to evade. The swarm learned instantly. Creatures that had been hit regenerated. Vessels that had taken damage adapted their hulls to resist further attacks. But they had never fought anything like humans. "Close the distance," Reyes commanded. The Relentless surged forward, engines at full burn. Other Defiant-class destroyers followed, forming a spearhead aimed at the heart of the swarm formation. "Captain, we are entering suicide range," Diego warned. "I know. That is the point. Human tactics were not designed for elegance. They were designed for victory at any cost. The Defiant-class ships were meant to get close, to brawl, to fight in ranges where other species considered combat impossible. The swarm tried to adapt. Tentacles lashed out to grab human vessels. Organic projectiles slammed against human hulls. Acid sprayed in clouds meant to dissolve enemy ships. Humans fought through all of it. "Deploying the Spite," Reyes announced. The weapon on the relentless spine powered up. Compressed antimatter fed through gravitational lenses. The ship shuddered as reality itself bent around the barrel. Diego watched the targeting display. Lock acquired. Firing. The Spite spoke. A beam of twisted space-time crossed the distance and struck the largest swarm organism. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a hole opened in the creature's center. Not a wound. A hole in space itself. A micro-singularity that tore the organism apart from inside. Across the fleet, other ships deployed similar weapons. The swarm screamed, a psychic shriek that every human felt in their bones. They did not expect that. Rosa Adiemi's voice came over the engineering channel. "They have no adaptation for weapons that break physics." But the swarm was learning. Even as its larger vessels died, smaller organisms swarmed toward human ships, seeking to overwhelm them through numbers. Diego watched his displays. Incoming boarding organisms. Multiple contacts on the hull. "Point defense, clear them," Reyes ordered. Guns designed to track thousands of targets simultaneously opened fire. Swarm organisms died in waves, but more kept coming. "Hull breach, Section 7. A crew member reported. "Seal it. Marines to Section 7. Reyes remained calm despite the chaos. "Keep firing. Keep moving. Do not let them pin us down." The battle became a storm. Human ships wove through swarm formations, taking damage and dealing it back tenfold. Vessels that would have retreated under any sane doctrine kept fighting, their crews refusing to give ground. Alien observers stopped their recordings. They simply watched, unable to believe what they were seeing. "Evacuation transports are launching from the colony," Diego reported. 3 billion civilians. They need cover." Reyes nodded. "All forward ships," from a screen. "Let nothing through." The Relentless took position between the swarm and the fleeing transports. Around them, other human vessels did the same, creating a wall of metal and weapons. The swarm threw itself against that wall. Ships died. Crews sacrificed themselves to plug gaps. Engineers worked under fire, keeping damaged vessels fighting past any reasonable limit. Rosa Adiemi's voice came over the channel. "Relentless, your port engine is failing. I am sending a repair team." "We are in active combat," Reyes replied. "I know. They volunteer anyway." A shuttle launched from a support vessel, crossing the Hell's Cape of battle to reach the Relentless. Inside, a team of engineers prepared to conduct repairs while weapons fire erupted around them. That was humanity, not powerful because of any single advantage, but unstoppable because they refused to quit. 3 hours later, the last transport cleared the system. The colony was saved. Human losses, 11% of the fleet. 132 vessels destroyed. Thousands dead. Swarm losses, far greater. For the first time in its existence, the devouring swarm had lost more than it gained from battle. "They are retreating," Diego said, disbelief in his voice. "The swarm is actually retreating." Reyes slumped in her chair. "Not retreating, regrouping. They are learning from this fight. They will come back stronger." "Where will they go?" "Chethras, the Valari homeworld. What remains of the Valari population is gathered there." Reyes looked at her exhausted crew. "If we want to end this, we have to follow them." Diego thought about the mathematics. The swarm still outnumbered them 10 to 1. Following them meant more death, more sacrifice, but the alternative was letting them consume everything. Orders from Admiral Nakamura, the communications officer, announced. "All ships capable of combat are to proceed to Chethras. We finish this." The Relentless turned toward the next battle. Behind them, 3 billion saved lives reached safety. Ahead, the final confrontation waited. 800 ships remained. 800 against 10,000. Admiral Nakamura studied the numbers in her quarters aboard the flagship unconquered and did not flinch. She had known from the beginning that this war would demand everything humanity could give. The question was whether everything would be enough. Operation Prometheus, she said to her assembled commanders via holographic link. That is what we are calling this. Captain Reyes of the Relentless spoke first. You named our final battle after the person who gave fire to humanity and was punished for eternity. Is that supposed to be encouraging? Prometheus suffered so others could have light. Nakamura pulled up tactical displays. The swarm has gathered at Chethras. 10,000 organisms preparing to consume the last Volari survivors. Approximately 800 million civilians remain on evacuation transports in orbit. 800 million lives, Rosa Adeyemi said from her engineering station. And we have 800 ships to protect them. Actually, we have 799 ships for protection. Nakamura highlighted one vessel on the display. One ship will carry the weapon that ends this. She activated the next image. A device unlike anything humanity had built before appeared on screen. It looked almost simple, a sphere surrounded by focusing arrays. A stellar ignition device, Nakamura explained. It uses gravitational manipulation to trigger premature fusion collapse in a star. When activated in proximity to Chethras' sun, it will cause a supernova. A supernova, Diego repeated. That would destroy the entire system. Yes, including the swarm. Silence fell over the meeting. The evacuation transports need 6 hours to reach safe distance, Nakamura continued. We must hold the swarm in place for those 6 hours while the transports flee and the device is positioned. 6 hours against 10,000 enemies, Reyes said. With 800 ships, 799. Admiral, that is a death sentence. Yes. Nakamura met each commander's eyes through the holographic link. I'm asking you to die so that 800 million Volari can live. I'm asking you to die for people who spent 3 centuries telling us we were inferior. I am asking the impossible. She paused. And I'm asking as someone who will be right there beside you. The unconquered will hold the center line. I will not ask any of you to sacrifice what I am not willing to give myself. One by one, the commanders nodded. No one argued. No one tried to find another way. They all knew there was no other way. That night, the fleet prepared for its final battle. Diego walked the corridors of the Relentless, speaking with crew members who knew they might not survive the dawn. He found some writing messages to families. Others played cards or shared meals. A few sat in silence, making peace with what was coming. He stopped at the engineering section, where Rosa Adeyemi was working on a console. I thought you would be sleeping, he said. Sleep is for people who expect to wake up tomorrow. Rosa did not look up from her work. I'm calibrating the backup systems. If we lose primary power, I want the weapons to keep firing. Rosa, we both know the mathematics. She finally met his eyes. Yes, we know. That is why we are here. I wanted to thank you for everything you taught me when I was just an engineer in the cargo yards. You were the first person who told me that human innovation mattered. Rosa smiled, and for a moment she looked young again. You proved it mattered, Diego. Every modification you made, every improvement, you showed them what we could do. I wish I had more time to show them more. That is always the human wish. Rosa returned to her work. More time. We never have enough. So we have to make every moment count. On the bridge, Captain Reyes addressed the crew. In 6 hours, we engage the swarm at Chethras. Command has designated us for the rear guard. We will be the last line between the enemy and the evacuation transports. She looked at the faces watching her. Young faces, scared faces, determined faces. The rear guard does not retreat. The rear guard holds until the mission is complete or until there is nothing left to hold with. Every minute we buy is another transport reaching safety. Every second matters. A crew member raised their hand. Captain, what if we do not make it? Reyes considered the question. Then we will have died doing what humans do best. We will have died protecting people who needed us. 300 years ago, the galaxy said we were too short-lived to matter. Tomorrow, we show them what we can do with the time we have. The crew returned to their stations. Final preparations continued through the night. At dawn, such as dawn existed in deep space, the fleet formed up, 800 vessels against 10,000. Admiral Nakamura's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. Today we answer every insult, every mockery, every dismissal, not with words, not with anger, with action, with sacrifice, with the truth of who we are. Engines ignited, weapons powered up, shields activated. For humanity, for the Concord, for everyone who was ever told they were not enough. The fleet began its final journey toward Chethras. Diego stood at his station, watching the stars streak past, and thought about all the time he wished he had. Then he thought about all the lives they were about to save. It was enough. It had to be enough. 6 hours until salvation or extinction. The countdown began. Fire bloomed across the void as 800 human ships slammed into 10,000 swarm organisms. Diego had never seen anything like it. The darkness between stars became a storm of weapons fire, explosions, and dying vessels. Human ships wove through swarm formations with a ferocity that defied reason. Crews that should have retreated kept fighting. Vessels that should have been destroyed kept firing. Hour 1, Captain Reyes announced. Evacuation transports at 15% safe distance. Hold the line. The Relentless shuddered under another impact. Swarm organisms had learned from the previous battle. They came in waves now, sacrificing hundreds to overwhelm human point defenses, then striking at exposed hulls. Hull breach, decks 4 through 7, the damage control officer reported. Seal them. Keep fighting. Across the fleet, similar reports flooded the channels. Human losses climbed steadily. 40 ships gone in the first hour, 80 by the second. The mathematics grew worse with every passing minute. But the line held. Admiral Nakamura's flagship Unconquered anchored the center formation. Swarm organisms threw themselves at her position again and again, recognizing her vessel as the command node. Each time, the surrounding ships closed ranks and drove them back. Hour 3, Nakamura broadcast to the fleet. Evacuation at 50%. Hold. Diego watched his displays and tried not to count the dying. Human vessels flickered and vanished as their signatures disappeared from the tactical network. Friends he had trained with. Engineers who had argued over modifications with him. All becoming silent points of light in an endless battle. The Unconquered is being boarded, a voice reported. Diego looked up. The flagship's hull showed dozens of breach points where swarm organisms had latched on and burned through. Inside, Admiral Nakamura was fighting hand-to-hand against creatures that had devoured civilizations. She is still commanding, Reyes said quietly. Still giving orders while fighting for her life. That was humanity, refusing to quit even when everything said they should. Hour 4. 300 human ships remained. The evacuation transports were at 70% safe distance. Relentless, the stellar ignition device is in position. Rosa Adeyemi's voice came over the channel. But the activation vessel has been destroyed. Someone needs to trigger it manually. How close do they need to get? Reyes asked. Within the blast radius. There is no way out once it is triggered. Diego looked at his captain. Reyes looked back. I will do it, Diego said. Diego, no. Captain, someone has to. And my station is damaged anyway. The Relentless can fight without a tactical officer. It cannot fight without a captain. Before Reyes could argue, Diego was running. He reached the shuttle bay as explosions rocked the ship. A small craft waited there, barely large enough for one person. He launched into the chaos. Behind him, the Relentless continued fighting. Around him, the battle raged. Ahead, the stellar ignition device waited near the dying sun of Chethras. Diego, Rosa's voice in his ear. I'm tracking your approach. You have 8 minutes before the evacuation reaches safe distance. Then I will be there in 7. His shuttle dodged swarm organisms that tried to intercept him. point defense guns on nearby human ships cleared his path. Everyone knew what he was doing. Everyone helped. Evacuation at 90% safe distance, Nakamura broadcast. Her voice was ragged now. All ships, prepare to withdraw. Diego reached the device. His shuttle locked onto the activation mechanism. 5 minutes, Rosa said. Diego, I want you to know that everything you built, everything you created, it mattered. You mattered. So did you, Rosa. Tell them that. Tell them we were here. He triggered the activation sequence. Nothing happened at first. Then the sun began to change. Its light shifted from yellow to white to blue. Gravitational forces twisted reality around it. The swarm recognized the danger too late. 10,000 organisms tried to flee, but the collapsing star was faster. All ships, emergency withdrawal, Nakamura ordered. Everyone out. Now. Human vessels turned and ran. Behind them, the sun died, and then it was reborn. The supernova tore through Chethra's system like the wrath of creation itself. Swarm organisms that had devoured civilizations were vaporized in microseconds. The wave of destruction expanded outward, consuming everything in its path. Diego's shuttle could not escape. He knew that from the beginning. But at the last moment, an engineering support vessel appeared beside him. Rosa Adeyemi's voice came over the channel. You really thought I would let you die alone? Grab onto my hull. Now. He fired grappling hooks. The support vessel's engine screamed as it tried to outrun the apocalypse. The blast wave caught them at the edge of safe distance. Both ships tumbled through space, systems failing, hulls burning. When Diego opened his eyes, the sun was gone. Chethra's system was a cloud of expanding debris. And somehow, impossibly, he was still alive. The Galactic Concord held a memorial 3 months later. High Arbiter Seleth stood before the assembly, her compound eyes reflecting the images of human dead. We were wrong, she said. We measured you by your lifespans and found you wanting. We should have measured you by what you would sacrifice for strangers who showed you no kindness. Ambassador Okonkwo responded. You asked us once why we build. We build because we refuse to accept a universe that says we are not enough. You said we could not make warships. We answered with this. We can make anything, including a future worth living in. 5 years later, Diego stood in the rebuilt Prometheus yards, watching crews from a dozen species train together. Human innovation combined with alien knowledge. Short lives teaching long-lived species what urgency meant. Admiral Nakamura, scarred but alive, joined him. The Concorde offered us a permanent seat on the High Council, she said. Will we accept? We will. Not for honor. For the chance to make sure no one is ever told they are too small to matter. Diego watched the new ships being built. Humanity had answered. The galaxy would never forget.